Now you can hear me. Hello, everybody. I am Mayor Watt, and today is April 22nd, 2022. Time is flying by, and so I run ohmtown.com. That's that site right there. Let me scroll up so you can see the top of it. If you're listening to this in the podcast, thank you very much for downloading and listening. Come over to Twitch every day at 11 o'clock. I talk about the news in the context of business, technology, and society. I aggregate using my website, ohmtown.com, hundreds of articles each day. More than that, hundreds of sources. Could be thousands of articles. It really depends on how busy the day is. Then I filter through it because it gets categorized into 6 main categories: create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. And then from there, I go over the news at 11 o'clock over at twitch.tv/ohmtown. I don't want to delay. I do have another meeting. Again, it's a rough life to be mayor of a virtual city stuck in a wire, and you never know. I kind of have to triage my day. So, but this is very important to the mayor, and I want to go over all of the material that I've selected. The very first article is in the Smack Talk channel: fraudsters target Apple Pay in credit card scams. This seems kind of interesting to me because for all intents, Apple Pay is secure. The only problem there is when somebody has the actual number to the card. Everything else is a one-off card number. So if I've added Apple Pay into my watch, then I can pay with Apple Pay, and it's a one-time code. It says here, criminals using stolen credit card details are reportedly linking them to contactless payment systems such as Apple Pay before spending thousands of dollars through them. Let's click the link. It'll take us over to appleinsider.com and an article written by William Gallagher. There have been cases before of thieves using a burner phone and Apple Pay to spend on stolen credit cards. But now a new report quotes one fraudster as describing Apple Pay as the easiest way to make money. According to Vice, which I didn't link to, but you can actually go to it if you follow my link over to Apple Insider, or you can go to Apple Insider straight away. According to Vice, Apple Pay and other systems are discussed on Telegram channels typically used by criminals. The fraudsters are reportedly now using a recently developed hacking tool. Bots automatically place phone calls to victims who are then, in some unspecified way, manipulated into handing over their multi-factor authentication codes. And this is the weakest link. It's the human being. It isn't the tech. The tech is going to be tried and true over time a whole lot faster than the technical evolution and sophistication of the human beings that are using that tech. And therein lies the problem. As technology becomes more embraced by people, we really need an educated citizenry, people who are aware of the issues with cybersecurity, and it can't be perceived as everybody else's problem to solve for me as a consumer. I need to be aware of it as well. Couple with that, the next, beyond the consumer or the user of the tech not being digitally street savvy, the next level are the people that are performing customer service duties, because somebody can come across as sounding like an authority in terms of being a customer in trouble needing access to an account, and they literally can be kited into providing either a reset code to a unique new email address or a new phone number or whatever the reason is. if I have enough intelligence on somebody, I can call up a company and provide so much overwhelming information that it's obvious that I'm that person, except for the fact that a technically savvy, street smart customer service rep wouldn't make a single solitary change without additional information, beyond, what is your mother's maiden name, what's the favorite color of your car, whatever it might be. One of the biggest things in penetration testing, physical penetration testing of a facility, is if you come across like you know what you're doing, people don't question you. It's almost a joke, but it's true. And that's where you get physical compromise of facilities, which I've witnessed. So in this particular case, nobody should be divulging any personally identifiable information in any way, shape, or form. And handing over your multi-factor authentication codes is just an absurdity. Nobody in the 21st century should ever be giving a code out over a phone to somebody. Either you activate it from your device and authorize login, and if you're not the one that's on your computer logging in directly, don't authorize anything. So how this is getting performed to the point where it becomes an article worthy of reporting, and Vice's engagement in this is kind of beyond me, because we have been educating people not to divulge personally identifiable information and not to enable access to your account by anyone other than you directly, even if there are problems, and certainly not from a blind phone call. So it's really odd how it can be coined as Apple being the easiest exploitable payment method. So I'm going to continue on with the next article. This one here is in The Word in Tech, and it's the Large Hadron Collider restarts after 3-year break. The LHC restarted Friday after a 3-year break for upgrades that will allow it to smash protons together at even greater speeds in the hope of making new groundbreaking discoveries, which it does on the regular. Let's click the link. It'll take us over to phys.org and an article written by Daniel Lawler and Juliet Cullen. I love the LHC. I think it's an amazing piece of engineering and theoretical physics made manifest. It's just an amazing piece of equipment. And I hope that there were plans to make an even larger one. I think those are shelved now, but I think a larger one with more power would be able to smash these fundamental particles, and from there we will glean additional fundamental knowledge of our universe. It says here, it will further study the Higgs boson, the existence of which it proved in 2012 and put the standard model of particle physics to the test after recent anomalies sparked theories about a mysterious fifth force of nature. Quote, 2 beams of protons circulated in opposite directions around the Large Hadron Collider's 27-kilometer or 17-mile ring, end quote. Just after noon on Friday, Europe's physics lab CERN said in a statement, buried more than 100 meters beneath the border of Switzerland and France, the collider has been closed since December 18th for maintenance and upgrades, the second longest shutdown in its 14-year history. So it's been doing all of its material functions for 14 years. All the while, people are still conspiratorially mentioning that it's going to lead to a black hole creation and destroy the planet and the universe. Well, in terms of us, it would destroy our universe, but it's just not going to happen. That's not how it works. There isn't enough energy on the planet to smash 2 protons together so that it would create a black hole. There isn't anything there. So I've never understood why it's entertained to such a great degree. What we need is a bigger one, and more power so that we can actually get to greater understanding. And in doing so, maybe we'll figure out a way that we can um, manipulate energy in a way where we don't have to burn fossil fuels or something else. For instance, nuclear physics right now, for nuclear generation of power, it amounts to boiling water and turning a steam engine, which I find just dramatically inefficient. It's effective and efficient for us as humans right now. But getting closer to this one-to-one acquisition of energy and use in the face of physics, right? Right now, engines are like 8-to-1. You put in 8 bits of energy and you get 1 out. Steam engines are similar. We become slightly more efficient, but we really do need to fund this to a greater degree so we can understand our universe better. But I can't go down this hole because I absolutely love this technology. One day I'll go and see it in person. But a pandemic actually kind of laid low those plans. So let's continue on. The next article, it says here, is Jeff Bezos is worth 160 billion, yet Congress might bail out his space company. This is an article that's over in the Hatch Ideas channel. Again, I might actually start up that channel on the weekends, but I haven't put all of my ducks in a row, but I like to mention it. If people are interested in it, then they can let me know. That said, this here is quite interesting because not too long ago, the same exact thing happened with SpaceX, Tesla, Elon Musk. There was a massive it was a contract given to SpaceX to provide rockets to NASA functions. And lo and behold, the creation of the richest person in the world, Elon Musk, after this won in, I think, a $1.4 billion contract from government, public money, right? So now we have another billionaire. And in other cases, it's still public money being shoveled into private enterprise, making private billionaires or multi-millionaires. This happens on the regular. Meanwhile, there are people that are absolutely struggling to pay for their education. And in doing so, not being able to even file for bankruptcy and discharge their debts, medical, education, whatnot. In some cases, you can't do it because of the career you've chosen. But at any rate, I've always found that this is kind of absurd because if I am a small business person, if my business is about to fail, I have a choice. I either take my own money and inject it into the system, or I shutter my business, or I find there are other objectives too. I mean, you could go out and find additional investors. You could get a loan, whatever the case may be. I don't have the government coming in and bailing out my business because it might collapse. But here it says on 20th of July, 1969, 650 million people throughout the world watched with bated breath as Neil Armstrong successfully fulfilled President Kennedy's vision. So they're throwing in this, beautiful romantic context to this. But therein lies the rub. It shouldn't be romanticized, in my opinion. This is a Bernie Sanders article over at The Guardian. There is the simplicity of this is it is a business enterprise. And although it has greater good capabilities, the risk is very high. And while we have massive inflation taking hold in the United States, there are people out there worth hundreds of billions of dollars. One such billionaire just activated $23 billion worth of stock so that they could capitalize on purchasing Twitter. So there's a real problem here in that public money is funding private enterprise, even though it has public benefit. Ultimately, maybe The risk of return, though, is pretty questionable. It's worked once. Maybe it's worked on other times, but hey, what I want is more skin in the game. I want the people who have the means to fund their enterprises, funding their enterprises, because I will have to shut down my business, or I invest my own money in the business again, and I have to include that investment in my accounting. And if I want future investors, they get to see, hey, I injected my business with more capital because it was failing and I needed to assume that risk. Even so much so that if I have to shutter my business, the tax liability will transfer to me. There are still issues with all of this. Billionaires will never feel any of that pain and suffering. They may have in the beginning of their career, but not anymore. And I don't agree with the idea that you make your bones and then you lean on the benefits of the outcomes. And just because you happen to make it doesn't make it right that you can continue to abuse a system. And I find this abusive. So let me continue on. I'll end up on a soapbox quite a bit today if I don't just stick to my process. The next article is over in the Mobile channel, 5 eco-friendly product swaps to make your home more earth happy. This is a Vice.com article. It says, Happy Mother's Day to our juicy, exhausted orb. We celebrate your bounty, stand in awe of your HD iguana versus snake fights. Okay. And stress out about how soon we might have to be living in a, they have a cuss word here, so I'll just say crappier version of Waterworld. So let's click this link and take us over there. I'm trying to be family friendly. So this is a Vice.com article. For whatever reason, they have this really convoluted way of marketing their articles. So this is in Rec Room, recommended by Vice. It's written by Rec Room staff for Vice. And it says here, from eco-friendly mattresses to biodegradable, I'm going to have to skip that. Here are 5 easy ways to make your domicile into a more sustainable place. And I think I'm just going to have to encourage you to go over and read this, because I'm not going to include any of the adult content that might be in this. And like I've said in previous episodes, I don't read the article prior to it. My reactions are really the raw reaction of the article. So take it all with a grain of salt. Follow that link and go over to Vice.com and let me see if there's anything on here that isn't going to get me taken down in just a moment. Yeah, I don't know if this is going to be a risky website. Every once in a while, this kind of stuff happens, but let's see. What is this? A person with an actual bed frame, or are you still chilling with a full size on the floor? Interesting. I'm looking for this, the article's actual. So Avocado is a queen size green mattress, and it's $1,600 at Avocado. Yeah, there's quite a few things here. Beeswax food wrap and glass jars with bamboo lids and metal scooper. Trying to get away from plastic. In my other streams, in my other podcasts, the episodes, I've made mention that research has shown that we are now finding microplastics in our bodies, not just like laying on the surface or sitting on a counter somewhere. We're finding it inside our livers. We're finding it inside our muscle tissue. We're finding it in our bloodstream, and it's quite disconcerting. And I won't make any bones about it that I have a ton of plastic stuff. I mean, pretty much everything in my office, tons of stuff in my kitchen. We have what amounts to disposable materials, and with each passing day, I continue to consider moving things out and switching, but it's a different dynamic with kids and pets and other things going on. The ease of not having to worry about breaking a glass jar is pretty much the only thing that is a tenable position. Moving to glass is pretty dangerous. So at any rate, this article gives you a whole bunch of, I knew I was going to run across that eventually. So I'm just going to move on. If you're in the podcast, then you didn't see what I saw. And if you're not in the podcast, then, well, you just saw an adult toy. Okay. The next article is over in the Daily News Show. And a YouTuber purposely crashed a plane, according to the FAA. Now, I've seen the video. I heard about this yesterday, and it was in my aggregator this morning. And I thought that it would be interesting to just mention this. It says Trevor Jacob posted a 12-minute video of a crash to his YouTube channel and has received more than 1.7 million views. And in response, the FAA revoked his pilot license. So what I find, the reason why I even brought this up is because I think it's rather sociopathic. This person literally crashed a plane for views, in the process contaminated the area where the plane crashed. Who knows what could have happened? And just because something didn't happen doesn't make it right. It still makes it a conscious effort to cause damage, harm to the environment, and complete disregard for any life. Who knows what this thing could have hit? And just because they go, well, it was flying over desolate land, it's desolate to you because you lack the context of understanding or the compassion and understanding that there is other life out there beyond your nose, literally not seeing past their nose. All they wanted was clicks, attention, clout. This article is over at ABC News, written by Michelle Stoddard and Alex Stone, and it says, I did not jump out of my plane for views. No, I believe you absolutely did, based on what I saw. Because you made zero effort to try and resolve the plane crash. Everybody who has ever pursued their pilot's license understands what it means to fly a plane, and they have regard for the equipment, for the plane. They will pilot and glide around to try and find a place to land, and if they don't just jump out of their plane with a parachute. In fact, I'll have to talk to some pilots to find out, some small plane pilots, to see, or small craft pilots, to see if they regularly carry their parachute with them, just in case. If they give everybody a parachute, just in case they have to bail out at altitude without surveilling the area to see, or try. They didn't, apparently FAA says that they didn't even bother trying to restart their plane. So it says, in November, Jacob flew over Los Padres National Forest in California. Jacob posted a 12-minute video of the crash to his YouTube channel that has received more than 1.7 million views, according to YouTube's page. I think it should be taken off the air. You operated this flight to purposely cause N29508 to crash, the FAA said in a letter to Jacob dated April 11th, 2022. In the letter, the FAA said Jacob's flight was careless or reckless so as to endanger the life or property of another, and said Jacob must surrender his private pilot license effective immediately. Subsequently, they've found the crashed plane, and although it's one of those pretty light framed planes, almost a glider in its design, It is meant so that if a catastrophe like this happens, you can glide it quite a distance. They never bothered. The engine shut down and they dumped it. I mean, literally just dropped it. So who knows what other dangers could have presented itself in the area. There could have been other planes in the area. They could have glided to where there were cars on the road, or there were hikers out in the national forest, and crashing it into a national forest is just despicable to me. So jumps out, camera rigs all over him so that he can sit there and record everything. And a goofy smile on his face all the while. So hopefully he doesn't surrender his pilot license because of pride, and it costs him $1,700 a day. So yeah, I don't know, but everybody loves a plane wreck, so they'll watch that, but they won't care about so many other things. So I'm going to continue on. The next article is in the Mobile channel, and its researchers take a step toward creating an axle rotor nanomachine. A large team of researchers at the University of Washington, working with colleagues from Université Montpellier and the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center, has taken a major step toward the creation of an axle rotor nanomachine. And in the paper published in this journal Science, the group describes how they use DNA coding to customize E. coli to push them into creating proteins that assembled into rotors and axles. Now, this is turning into some cyberpunk level stuff here. This is an article over at phys.org written by Bob Yurka of phys.org. As the researchers note, molecular engines are abundant in nature, from the tails of flagellum on some bacteria to the F1 motor of ATP, or I'm not sure how to pronounce that. ATPase, I guess. I know of ATP, but I don't regularly say that word. So ATPase. And while some such examples have served as good models, attempts to harness them in nature or create new ones in the lab have been mostly unsuccessful. This is due to the single-purpose features of natural engines and unpredictability of protein folding in synthetic attempts. In this new effort, the researchers have overcome some of the hurdles that others have faced and have taken a major step toward the creation of a molecular engine by creating two of the main parts necessary for such a device, an axle and a rotor, and even managed to connect them together. This is actually pretty amazing stuff. And it'll end up being the beginnings. I don't think there's any other pictures other than this render. The rotors 1 billion times smaller than a poppy seed have been constructed. It's pretty neat. Okay, let's continue on. The next article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel. Pardon me 1 second. And it says here, JP Morgan employees describe the fear of God and panic as the company tracks their office attendance. Nothing like in the face of 2+ years of pandemic related performance. If there is something that has impacted performance, somehow I doubt that it is the fact that I get to stay home and do my job. It's really about empowering your employees to do what they need to do, however they need to do it, as long as it falls within the company policy and procedure, and by that, law. But tracking somebody's attendance in the face of work product output, that is the key. Are the people producing? If they're not producing, address it. But this almost smacks of stalking people that are employed just to make sure that they're doing work, and that means showing up in their office. It says JP Morgan has asked hybrid employees to come into the office at least 3 days a week. The bank is tracking ID swipes to monitor staffers' office attendance. One executive described there being a fear of God and panic over the attendance quotas. JP Morgan has started tracking staffers' attendance, and employees say it's creating an atmosphere of mistrust and panic. Well, it depends on what the ramifications are. If I am only showing up twice a day and I'm still getting the job done, I think it's arbitrary and capricious to require 3 days. If I can get it done entirely remotely, I think it's arbitrary that a rule says that I have to come in 3 days a week. A body in a seat is nothing more than a burden on my work-life balance. If I have to come in to do my job, yet all my job consists of is me sitting at a desk and plugging in numbers and coding something, and the same level of security and access is available from my office at home via a VPN or some other apparatus that's in place, why? Why do I have to travel in rush hour traffic and consume gas, have to get food that's more expensive elsewhere, not be able to enjoy my work-life balance when it's less constrained by me having to be in traffic for 2 hours a day? Even if it's 15 minutes each way, you're still talking about 30 minutes of unpaid labor. And you have to deal with all of the minutia of the office. Yet if you can still do the job, why do I have to show up? Why do I have to show up in the office? I will not understand that. And I think more people are moving in that direction, mainly because of the pandemic. And it's just heavy-handed to sit there and monitor people like this. That said, I'm probably not making fans out of JP Morgan's administration. So here's to my credit cards getting cut up. So it says here over at Business Insider, the article is written by Sarah Jackson, Reed Alexander, and Aaron Weinman. This is Jamie Dimon, the chair and CEO of JP Morgan Chase. Let's see. I'm going to see if there's something else in here. In recent letter to shareholders, JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon said 50% of the bank's global employees must return to the office 5 days a week. 40% can follow a hybrid schedule with some days at home and in the office, and the remaining 10 can work remotely full time. Well, isn't that magnanimous? Why only 10%? Right? Why is there a number associated with this? Why not based on their duties, they can stay home? Why 50% have to return to the office? It really depends, right, on what their job is. If they are directly interacting with human beings and that is the scope of their job, then I can understand that. But even then, work out the workflow where a person can do this electronically and not have to show up somewhere. But a lot of business is built around relationships. And that's kind of like an old school mantra too, because a relationship doesn't necessarily have to be you hanging out at a bar, quote unquote, doing business. It can be in any way. And there's plenty of digital nomads that are making a living in 6 digits or more from a beach. Okay, so let's continue on with the next article. The next article is in the Hedge Ideas channel. Republican congressional candidate savages, quote unquote, sodomite predators and quote unquote, LGBT groomers, end quote, in wildly homophobic fundraising blast. So in the latest in the hate fundraising newsletter, Arkansas GOP officials aren't supporting Neil Kumar's bid for Congress due to his extremist views. Kumar raised money Thursday using transphobic and homophobic language. He's also tarring his political opponents in both parties as demons and predators. The LGBT groomers want your kids email blast is straight from the MAGA Culture Wars playbook, portraying public schools as psychological torture camps, pedophilia as the greatest threat humanity has ever faced. And this all spawned from a discussion on 4chan, and it went from meme joke in random discourse to publicly manifest. I mean, it really does exist. that people are saying these things, that school education is grooming people. It's just so bizarre, so bizarre. This is a Business Insider article written by Warren Rojas. And of course, it's a person that's standing there with a machine gun in a picture with a big old smile, as if, Merry Christmas, and then a machine gun. What is the purpose of this other than to uh, attempt to strike fear in people who have real issues with guns? I mean, a gun should not be a prop. A gun is a tool to either survive one way or survive another. It shouldn't be sitting around with a bunch of people, unwrapping Christmas presents or having Thanksgiving, or in this case, uh, running around saying, "Hey, put me in office." Um, it's just so weird. Just so weird. Says here, education has been replaced by promotion of the depraved LGBT agenda, a satanic attack on God and nature, Kumar wrote, adding that sodomite predators are grooming, brainwashing, and mutilating our vulnerable children. Hate to break it to you, bub, but LGBT is not predatorial. It isn't going after children, and it has persisted. The 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 people that make up the LGBT community, who identify in that area, they've existed throughout the existence of humanity. But historically, they've been oppressed violently. Even today, in some countries, they are violently oppressed. They're killed, tortured, um, and in many other ways, just say impacted by society, because they lack the social context that everybody is a human being. And it matters not if you're LGBTQ plus, etc. I mean, not to diminish the various identified, right, categories. Some people identify as that. For me, I think everybody has a uniqueness, and I really don't even like the categorization of people. Um, but I understand the fight. I understand the need to be accepted, and to me, what I would what I want to address is everybody should be treated as a human being and shouldn't be marginalized or oppressed or threatened or anything simply because they are quote unquote different from somebody else's perspective. And this just screams vitriol, hatred, anger, disdain, etc. I mean, it says the candidate's evil is everywhere outlook spooked state party officials months ago. Arkansas GOP Party Chairman Jonelle Fulmer tagged Kumar as a non-recommended candidate last fall, adding that it wouldn't endorse or defend racist, bigoted, sexist, or threatening language by any candidate. Sorry, y'all. The GOP is being overtaken by fascist zealots, and we're going to end up with a theocratic, fascist plutocracy in short order if we don't put the cat back in the bag, or put the lid back on the can, or whatever euphemism you want to phrase it. We're in a very interesting time, and as the adage goes, you do not want to be in interesting times. You want everything to be just nice and chill and moving forward at a regular pace, except in tech. I'd really like leaps and bounds in tech. So I'm going to continue on. I'm at a loss for words that there are people that actually embrace that mentality. So let's continue on. The next article is over in Hatch Ideas channel. That's have we seen peak Netflix? The streaming giant loses subscribers amid talks of adverts and password sharing ban. So have we seen peak Netflix? Just so you know, this is a BBC article written by Jennifer Myrons and Alex Taylor. And I'm not sure if they're going to mention it in this article, but the problem here is that Netflix has lost 200,000 subscribers in the first quarter of 2022. That spooked a bunch of investors, and people bolted, including one hedge fund that bowed out entirely. And it says here, we've all spent the last few years, the last two especially, binge watching indiscriminately, too mesmerized to click the off button. Are we maybe just a little bit sick of it? No, I don't think so. I think that the doors are opening up, and people are able to go out and do more. And coupled with increased competition by really highly placed platforms like Disney Plus, Paramount, basically every TV studio that used to broadcast television is now switching over to apps and streaming, and that's taking out little chunks of viewership from Netflix. And instead of lowering prices to attract more people, and still making record profits, they're raising prices and balkanizing who can actually view. So now you're going to have a cheaper ad-supported tier. And that's how you end up kind of pushing people away. The reason why somebody's going to Hulu instead of Netflix is because they find better value in those particular shows. And that's all about licensing and competition. And instead of everybody being able to license for a set fee, it's they have exclusivity over there, they have exclusivity over there, they have exclusivity over there. Nobody gets to view anything. There is no one place to view everything like old school broadcast TV was. I could flip between channels seamlessly for a fixed price, even though it always increased. It always, there's just a bunch of noise, etc. I only watch 6 channels. I consume all of my information via the internet and publishing there. But TV, for crying out loud, is now a bunch of apps. And the first company that takes all of those disparate apps and puts it into one app, kind of like what Apple is doing, or trying to do, I can ask for a single show, and it will point me to whichever app has that show. So if Apple has the ability to spin this so that there's Apple TV and it's a subscription service that allows me to access any of the apps without an individual subscription, I'm game. But that's not how it is right now. And we'll end up with internet TV, except that it'll be broadcast TV on a copper wire that eventually turns into over-the-air Wi-Fi. And everything old is new again. So have we seen peak Netflix? I doubt it. The population will continue to grow physically on the earth, and more people will have the means to pay the subscription fee, and thus they will be able to continue to grow. But it needs to be at a reasonable rate. Stakeholders and investors want millions of dollars profits year over year, ever increasing 2%, 10%, 20%. They want margins bigger and bigger. Meanwhile, they're paying the employees less and less as inflation increases. Okay, so let's go on to the next article. The Iron Oath receives new gameplay trailer ahead of its April 19th launch. This actually was just something that I wanted to put into this because it came into the Aerith channel, which is a channel about story, world building. And I'm just going to click this and we're going to move on really quick. This is over at RPG Fan, written by Tom Cox. There's some pictures that look really neat, and it's a new trailer. So go over to rpgfan.com and read this. It says, in the build-up to the Iron Oath's early access launch on April 19th, Humble Games and Curious Panda have revealed a new gameplay trailer for the title. The new trailer gives players a feel for the fantasy realm of Calum, as well as an overview of the game's turn-based tactical gameplay. I'm not really much into turn-based RPGs. I don't know why. I like being in real-time control and not turn-based. But the tactics change. So if you are interested in this kind of thing, go over to RPG Fan and you can read more about it. It has some pretty neat graphics, very stylized. So let's continue on. I'm more than halfway through my hour, but not halfway through my article. So I thought this one was interesting, this article over in the Continuity Report, because it says Nicolas Cage tried to build an $80 million film studio in Las Vegas, but then, quote unquote, Elon Musk came in. So Nicolas Cage revealed on Jimmy Kimmel Live that he once tried to get a movie studio built in Las Vegas and had even secured $80 million to do so. And what went wrong? The actor said Elon Musk came to town in Las Vegas, opted to put the money into the Tesla Corporation instead of his. And so this is an article over at Variety by Zach Sharf. And by way of Jimmy Kimmel, Nicolas Cage said that Elon Musk kind of bumped him from building a movie studio because of Tesla, which is kind of this odd thing. I mean, if you're going to start up a business and it's costing $80 million to do so, and you're wealthy enough to afford a little bit more investment, then invest. Put some skin in the game. That's your objective, right? To launch a business, to make a profit-seeking enterprise. For something as easy as Tesla, another competitor coming in a disparate location. I mean, Tesla and movies are not in the same sector. So for Las Vegas basically to say, well, we'd rather invest in Elon Musk, your position spinning up this movie studio was tenuous at best. I'm not really sure how deep into it was, but I'd say that people probably weren't all that interested. Cage confirmed he originally moved to Las Vegas for tax reasons, but then I learned to love it. Wow. The actor added, I've had great experiences making movies there. Leaving Las Vegas was great. Honeymoon in Vegas is great. I've got good mojo there. I tried to get a movie studio built there, and then Elon Musk came in, and all the money I got for the movie studio, I got $80 million. They put into Tesla Corporation, which then ironically drained all of the water out of the city. But I almost got it. I almost got a movie studio. Well, invest. You got to have $80 million laying around, right? I mean, you're still a lucrative actor. Let's continue on. The next article is what's worth streaming. This is in the Stock Marketeers channel for some reason. I'm not quite sure why my aggregator threw it in there. It must be the source, and it is. It's because it's Market Watch. Get ready for new seasons of Hacks, along with Time Traveler's Wife, The Staircase, and much more. Pardon me. So this article was published and edited within the last 24 hours. And it's here's everything new coming to HBO Max in May 2022 and what's leaving. This goes back to that whole idea of licensing, and people compete for the license, and they get their movies and they throw it on Hulu instead of on Netflix or on Prime or on HBO or wherever it might be. And wherever there is marginal greater return on your investment, you're going to move that license, right? Kind of like crop rotation. Eventually it'll end up on some obscure network that not many people even know about, yet people will go there because that's the only place that paid for that movie. So go over to marketwatch.com. I won't spend much time on this, but I wanted to draw attention to it, that there are a whole bunch of movies coming and going from HBO. And it's quite a long list, to be sure, broken out by day. And I think I'm going to move on from this article. The next article is in the Hatch Ideas channel. How more than $412 million in taxpayer money got locked away in a forgotten government fund and lawmakers won't spend it or return it. This article is from businessinsider.com. It says the money is supposed to be publicly funding presidential campaigns, but it doesn't. Republican and Democrats in Congress can't agree on what to do with the ever-growing pot. Charities told Insider the money could do great good for suffering Americans. Hold away in a government account is a massive cash stash. Most anyone, from depleted federal programs to coronavirus-throttled charitable causes, would love to tap, but it sits idle and untouched. So this article is over at Business Insider, like I said, written by David Leventhal. And it's a fund that's supposed to help presidential election campaigns. And it's sitting there with $412 million. Interesting. But it seemingly seemed to grow. Oh, so your IRS collections added 4.3, well, 5.4 million dollars in the last year. Actually, from March 1st to 31st, it says Internal Revenue Service collections from March 1st to 31st added 5 million to it. So it's now sitting at $412 million. Yeah. I'm sure some president will find a way to gut that. And we'll go from there. Okay, so I'm going to leave that in the chat and in the show notes, and you can go and read more about it. My next article is in the Word and Tech. Asus drops 2 OLED ZenBooks and a new logo. Asus has quietly announced 2 additions to a ZenBook line that are all about the screens. The new AMD-powered ZenBook 13S joins a limited but slowly growing lineup of 13-inch OLED laptops for folks seeking the benefits of OLED technology for a consumer-accessible price. So let's click this link. It'll take us over to The Verge. Monica Chin is the author of this. And let's look at the price. Let's see. So it's currently going for $1,700. The 13S is powered by AMD's Ryzen 6000 processors, including the Ryzen 5 6600U or a Ryzen 7 6800U. It can be configured with up to 32 gigabytes of RAM, of LPDDR5, and 1 terabyte of storage. Yeah, it better be solid state storage, but it doesn't say here. And it has 3 Gen 2 Type-C USB 3.2 ports and a display port. So pretty cool. I always think thinner is better, and a tablet is a win. And there's another one, the ZenBook Pro 15 Flip OLED. That is $1,500. That one fits my bill. I like tablets. So much so that I actually created a channel for ohmTown called Tablet Fan. But I don't aggregate stuff there yet. Not enough tablet-related news. The next article is over in Mobile. Do you skip intro? Let's throw that in chat. And Wesley Morris and Hanif Abdurraqib, I guess. Consider what's lost when you breeze past the TV theme song. This is in the Mobile channel. It really should be in Continuity Report, but let's click the link anyway. And it says here, do you skip the intro? And what is lost when you skip the TV theme song? When we skip, we're denying the possibility of having this connection with a show that's that becomes bigger and more meaningful than the show itself. He takes his concern to his friend Hanif Abdurraqib, a poet, music critic, and MacArthur Genius Grant winner. Wow. Together they explore their childhood memories of good times, the Wonder Years, the Jeffersons, Then producer Hans Butow unearths a rendition of a theme song that blows their minds, and they vow never to skip intro on it. On today's episode, Wesley and Hanif are played this video of a choir singing the Good Times theme song, and now we need your help. Can you identify the choir? This is an article, again, that's over at the New York Times, and I think they have a podcast called Still Processing, for which, if you follow the link, you'll be taken over there, and you can just hit play, and there's a transcript if you're motivated to read the transcript. I'm going to continue on. The next article is in the Word in Tech. It says Valve upgrades its Steam Deck dock ahead of release, but we still don't know how much it costs. Valve quietly updated the specs to its still unreleased official dock for the Steam Deck handheld gaming PC, as reported by Review Geek. Maybe I should add them to my aggregator. The Steam Deck tech specs page originally said the dock would have one USB-A 3.1 port and two USB-A 2.0 ports and an Ethernet port for networking, but the page now says that all three USB-A ports will use the much faster 3.1 standard, and it now specifies that the Ether port will actually be a gigabit Ethernet port. Good. This older tech is driving me nuts. Let's click the link. It takes us over to The Verge, and Jay Peters is the author. And the dock is said to be available in late spring, so we're coming up on summer, so let's see if anything will be coming out. The deck itself is just now making it out to people. So that said, according to the Wayback Machine, Valve's Steam Deck tech specs page listed the original specs as of February 12th. Well, now they've changed. So don't go into the Wayback Machine, because like any other purchase, you'll regret looking back. In this case, you won't regret, other than the fact that you've wasted time looking back at history for the deck specs. Pardon me 1 second. The air is dry in my office today, so it's making me cough. So I'm going to continue on. The next article is Stumptown Coffee Roasters partner with Oatly to serve first annual Earth Day latte. So this is supposed to be a kinder, gentler latte. This Earth Day, which is April 22nd, throughout the weekend, order an Earth Day latte at participating Stumptown coffee cafes, and you'll not only enjoy a plant-based rose gold flavored drink. Stumptown and Oatly will each donate $1 to Zero Food Print, James Beard Foundation's 2020 Humanitarian of the Year. So we'll click the link. This is an article over at Sprudge. I use them in my aggregation because I have a Order of the Leaf show that I want to focus on coffee. And I'm a big promoter of anything that encourages people to be respectful of the earth. And it's Earth Day. So although this is somewhat isolated in terms of who's offering it up, look around in your neighborhood. Look around online and see if you too can find some way to benefit Earth Day in your daily adventures today and this weekend. So keep it in mind. We only have one Earth. And depending on who is the richest at the time when we actually can do planetary travel, we may always have just one Earth. Who knows? Okay, so the next article is over in the Daily News Show. CNN streaming service shutting down a month after launch. CNN is shutting down its CNN Plus streaming service less than a month after its launch. I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It barely had any engagement. People are just watching it online in fits and starts and not CNN Plus. They're also watching it on TV and various other places, so their customer base is pretty diluted across a multitude of platforms, not concentrated. So, for instance, there are only shows available on Paramount Plus. The only way you can consume them is on Paramount Plus. So people were driven over there. News is no such beast. You can go anywhere for news and get ample quantities of it. I am just one more show that talks about the news, and there's copious other people that generate the news and then just like any other show, there are people that are talking about that news. While I encourage people going over to the sources, many other people do not. I want you to go over and get a firsthand take on the news. Although I give you my perspective, I really do expect you to go over and consume the news that you find interesting. And at least I'm trying to provide some interesting context to it and interesting articles to begin with. Because, like I've said in a previous article or a previous episode, you don't know what you don't know. I am included in that. I don't know what I don't know, which is why I consume so much information. The next article, or sorry, the article about the CNN streaming service shutting down is over at ABC News. I'm pretty sure CNN is not streaming that right now. The article was written by Tali Arbel and David Botter from Associated Press Writers. And I can't remember what the number was. I think that CNN Plus had less than 200,000 people, and they were charging $6 a month, which is just kind of absurd. I mean, you're not going to be making any money. Include the ads, drive messaging, build a runway so that you can do this longer term. But if you're expecting people to, in a vacuum, go over to CNN Plus, you're already done. It says here, Perret said Discovery had learned from trying to launch its own news service in Poland and seeing the experiences of other paid streaming services in the United States like Fox Nation and CNN Plus, could not expect to get near 1 million subscribers. Yeah, I mean, if it's just news, they can get it anywhere because everybody is just amplifying the same specific sources. Most news places, until you get down to the local, even the local are being fed talking points because it's the most hype and there are people that are controlling the news. I use so many individual smaller news sources because of that burnout. I don't like the idea of messaging being controlled by a single source. So I read a bunch of news and I vet it for its efficacy and then I talk about it. It's a real shame that so much news is owned and controlled by so few people. And again, it's billionaires. The next article is over in Apple Discontinues. Oh, it's in the Wanted channel. And I really wanted this. I wanted this to stay, but I knew that it was dying on the vine. So now, after 23 years, Apple discontinues the macOS server after years of benign neglect. Yeah, it just sat there, barely did anything, and then kind of just disappeared. And I haven't used it in probably, 12 years, you know? Apple announced today that it is formally discontinuing macOS Server after 23 years. The app, which offers device management services and a few other features to people using multiple Macs, iPhones, iPads on the same network, can still be bought, downloaded, and used with macOS Monterey. It's also still currently available at its normal $20 price, but will no longer be updated with new features or security fixes. And that right there ends it for me. As soon as support stops, I bow out because without support, somebody will find a way to exploit it. Be it hardware and the software that's on it or the software itself, something's going to get inside. And I kind of despise that, just the nature of the game. This is an article over at Ars Technica, and it's written by Andrew Cunningham. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Server was never as widely used as the consumer versions of macOS, but macOS Server had a long history going all the way back to Apple's late 90s acquisition of Next and Next Step. Next Step was adapted into a project called Rhapsody, which added support for some longtime Apple software and a more Mac-like user interface. So macOS X Server, I thought was great and pretty rock solid. I never had a problem with it. That said, as soon as I felt support was dying, I bowed out. So As with every episode of ohmTown Daily News, I take you back to the very front page. I click on the link, and I show you that a whole new set of news has been aggregated, and this happens 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I want to thank you for stopping by. Really appreciate it. If you're downloading the podcast, watching it on YouTube, watching it as a VOD here, or sitting in chat, thank you for coming. Thank you for engaging. Please keep in touch. And I am still looking for a co-host. So if you are interested in being a co-host here, get in touch with me, and we can talk shop, see how it goes. Thank you very much for coming, and I'll see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock.